Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Munchetti.
Time now is 7:32, with less than a week until the general election. Party leaders are in the final stretch of their election campaign.
Now, among them is John Swinney, who is leader of the SNP, who joins us now from Edinburgh. John Swinney, thank you very much for your time with us here on BBC Breakfast. What message... Morning. What message are you hearing when you attend the debates and the leaders' debates, when you hear, look, after 17 years, change is needed? How are you fighting back on that?
Well, what I'm seeing is that there's big issues at stake in this election campaign where we've suffered because of having 14 years of austerity from the Conservative government in the United Kingdom, and we're suffering because of the economic damage of Brexit. And my point is that all of these issues are a product of decision-making in Westminster, and Scotland would be in a stronger position if decisions were to be made in Scotland for Scotland, and we could tackle the issues of austerity and Brexit by becoming an independent country. And that's the message I'm sharing with people to address the concerns that they have about the impact of spending cuts in our public services, the impact of the cost of living crisis, and the damaging effect of Brexit.
Are you not effectively banging your head against a brick wall? It's a pointless argument. Both the Conservatives and Labour have said they will not engage in talks of another referendum. Why are you pitching this when you know it will not happen? A conversation will not happen. It's a waste of time, isn't it?
Well, there's about 50% of the population in Scotland want our country to be independent. And at the 2021 elections, the Scottish Parliament was elected with a majority of members committed to holding a referendum on independence and for Scotland to become an independent country. So I think there's a really basic democratic point here.
That wasn't the only thing you campaigned on.
The will of the people is that they...
That wasn't the only thing you campaigned on. People voted for you for other reasons other than independence. That wasn't the only platform you stood on.
Well, we were advised by our opponents to go out and ask expressly for the right to conduct a referendum on the question of independence. We went out and asked the public for that, and the public elected a majority of members of the Scottish Parliament who are committed to that approach. And what I want to make sure is that we have a debate about making a difference to the lives of people in Scotland. People are really struggling just now because of the effect of the cost of living crisis, because of the effect of spending cuts. And all of that is coming from decision-making in Westminster. Now, my answer to that is independence. And I think the people of Scotland should have the opportunity to express that opinion and to be able to resolve the difficult issues and circumstances that we face in our country today by opting to make sure that decisions are made in Scotland for Scotland.
Good morning, Mr. Swinney. It's Charlie here in the studio. Do you not think sometimes it's too trite and simplistic an answer? And you've said it, I think, already 3 times in this interview, that all the problems Scotland faces lie at the foot of the UK government, of the Conservative government. Where is the responsibility that your party, the SNP, holds for the 17 years that you've been in power in Scotland?
Well, there's a lot of good things that we've done in the period in which we've been in power. For example, we've more than doubled the provision of early learning and childcare for the youngest children in Scotland. So 3- and 4-year-olds in Scotland will get, and some 2-year-olds will get the best provision of early learning and childcare of any part of the United Kingdom. A young person going to university from Scotland to a university in Scotland will not pay tuition fees because of the decisions that we've made here in Scotland. Now, if you take the health service, for example, we've taken hard decisions in Scotland to increase tax on higher earners so we can invest more in the health service than would have been planned by the consequential funding from the UK government. But we're having to do that while the UK government is applying spending cuts, and that's going to carry on whether there's a Labour government or a Conservative government. Those spending cuts are baked into the public finances. So my point is that the policies and the direction of the United Kingdom are having a damaging effect even on the choices that we can exercise in the area of health, which is a wholly devolved area of responsibility, but we're affected by the decisions in London as they affect our budget.
And then I look at comments. I know you've heard these comments. Tuesday, the British Medical Association Scotland chairman, Dr. Ian Kennedy, warning that Scotland is, and I'm quoting here, sleepwalking into a 2-tier healthcare system, accusing the Scottish government, and that is you, of lacking clarity and urgency. That's you they're talking about.
Well, I understand the challenges in the health service. I'm focused on those challenges every day. But they're a product of the fact that we've got increased demand in the health service and we therefore have to allocate more resources to do so. Now, in my last answer, I said that we've actually taken some tough decisions to increase tax to invest more in the National Health Service. We've taken other decisions to prioritise health service funding over other areas of policy. But the challenge we face, and this is right across the United Kingdom, because the challenges in the health service are not unique to Scotland. We've got the best performing accident and emergency system in the whole of the United Kingdom, so we're ahead of them. We have been for the last 9 years. But in other parts of the UK, the health service is facing exactly the same crisis that Dr Kennedy has talked about. But I want us to be able to address that by having the flexibility and the powers and the responsibilities to tackle the issues that we face, because I want a health service that's free at the point of need, available to meet the needs of individuals whenever they require it, and for it to offer an efficient system that supports individuals.
And I'm just looking at the comments from Public Health Scotland saying the number of people on NHS waiting lists has reached a record high.
And that's the argument for more investment. What worries me about this election is, and it's not just my worry, this is a worry that's been expressed by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who analyse these issues independently. There's a conspiracy of silence between the Labour and Conservative parties about the public finances. There are big spending cuts that are planned to come by the Conservatives. The Labour Party has effectively accepted those spending cuts are going to have to be made. And this is not a moment for spending cuts. We've had 14 years of spending cuts from the Conservatives, and it's had a devastating effect on our public services and the ability to meet the needs of individuals in our society today. So we've got to break out of that. We've got to invest more in our public services, and neither the Labour Party nor the Conservatives are prepared to do so. Now, where we've got responsibility in Scotland, we've taken the decisions to invest more in our health services and to make sure that they are better able to meet the needs of individuals. But I accept that people are waiting too long for treatment, they are having too much inconvenience in trying to access healthcare services, and the solution to that is investment, and that will not come from the outcome of a Labour or a Conservative government in this election.
I suppose I'm going to come around full circle almost, John Swinney. Obviously, when you pitch for independence, the next stage of that would be to rejoin the European Union. And looking at your manifesto, many of the pledges in the manifesto are costed as a return to the European Union. And none of the main Westminster parties plan to rejoin the EU. So what is the point in costing it with a return to the EU? That's false accounting, isn't it?
Well, that's actually relates to probably one of the biggest issues that we face in this election. Our economy is underperforming. That is absolutely crystal clear. The UK economy is about £70 billion smaller than it should be if we'd carried on in membership of the European Union. The decision to leave the EU is absolutely undermined economic growth.
Why would you cost something on something that's not going to happen, based on something that's not going to happen? We're not returning to the EU at the moment, over the next Parliament. Neither Labour nor the Conservatives have said they will. Why cost things in a manifesto and say to people, vote for us, this is how we're costing it, based on something that's not going to happen?
Well, that's a costing that relates to the end of the next parliamentary term. And what's important is that we have to address the hard realities that we face in this election. Brexit has undermined the United Kingdom economy. It's having a damaging effect on economic opportunity and trading opportunities in Scotland. It's reducing the size of the economy. It's reducing the tax take by about £28 billion a year. £28 billion that could be invested every year in our public services. For Scotland, that would be very close to £3 billion, which is a huge amount of additional investment in our public services. Now, that's the consequence of Brexit. And it's got to be confronted, because if we don't confront that, we are just accepting economic underperformance for years to come. And that's going to damage our economy, it's going to damage our society and damage our public services. So at some stage, somebody's got to take the lead and say this was a mistake and we've got to rejoin the European Union. For me, the answer to that is for Scotland to become an independent country so that we can rejoin the European Union and we can be part of that family of nations with the opportunities that come with it, to restore freedom of movement, to open
John
up trading
Swinney.
links that have been severed as a consequence of Brexit.
John Swinney, SNP leader, First Minister, thank you very much for your time with us here on BBC Breakfast.